Hi everyone, I hope you all are doing well and welcome to Docker Fundamentals series by Tech on Cloud. And today we are in the day 8 for this series, and this would be also our last lecture for this beginner level course on Docker. So in today's lecture I would be talking about Docker networking and different type of Docker networks. So let's move to the next slide without wasting time. Okay. So there are two types of Docker networks, which are default networks and self-defined networks, which came under the old name architecture for Docker networking. So let's move and see what is default networks. So as you install Docker in your system, it creates three networks automatically, which is bridge, null, and host. So bridge is a default network a container gets attached to. Okay, but if you would like to associate the container with any other networks, specify the network information using the network parameter command, which is done in the other two types, which is none and host. Okay. So let's continue talking about bridge. A bridge network is a private internal network created by the Docker on the host. All containers attached to this network by default get an internal IP address. Okay, so they are already assigned as soon as this network is created. The containers are assigned with their internal IP address, and the range of this IP address is for 172.17 series. The containers can access each other using the internal IP address which they get as default. If required, to access any other these containers from the outside world is to map ports of these containers to port on the Docker host, as we have seen before. Okay, so this bridge network is the default network as I told, and so we will be following the normal way to map the port with the container. Means we will be mapping the container to Docker host, and it would be available to the outside world. Okay, so the another way to access the container externally is to associate the container to the host network. This takes out any network isolation between the Docker host and the Docker container. That means that this host network is not there is no isolation in the host network. Okay, meaning if you were to run a web server on port 5000 in a web app container, it is automatically accessible on the same port externally without requiring any port mapping, as the web container uses the host network. Okay, so in this network you can see there is no other factor which is coming into play. We have a container on that there is a port defined which is 5000, and this is externally accessible, means this command can externally expose this container to the outside world. Okay, then mapping, as the web container uses the host network. Okay, that means there is no port mapping required for the host network. Okay, they means they can be exposed with the help of their ports. Okay, this would also mean that unlike before, you will now not be able to run multiple web containers on the same host on the same port, as the ports are now common to all the containers in the host network. This is also a little drawback here. Okay, so with the none network, which is the second type of network, the containers are not attached to any network and doesn't have any access to the external network or other containers. Okay, so this is all about the default networks, what are their types, and what we do for each category of network to expose it to the outside world. Okay, means not exposing the network, I'm talking about exposing the application. Okay, now next move on to the second type, which is our user defined network. So you can see on the screen there is one more IP range which is coming into play, that is the range which we create according to our means use cases, and the containers will be mapped or overlapped by that IP address, and that IP address would be their is isolate network. Okay, so let's discuss more on that. So as you saw, the bridge network with the network ID 172.17.01 coming into play there. So all network containers associated this default network will be able to communicate to each other. Okay, but if we want to isolate the containers within the Docker host, for example, the first two web containers means this one with IP 1.4 and 1.3, we want to isolate these containers within the Docker host, for example, then the first two web containers on the internal network and the second two containers on a different internal network will come into play. So this two container will have the range for 182.18, and this two container will be having 172.17 series IP addresses running on them. Okay, but by default Docker only creates one internal network bridge. Okay, for this we could create our own internal network using the command docker network create and specify the driver which is bridge in this case, and subnet forward network followed by the custom isolated network name. Okay, run the docker network command to list all the networks. Okay, so let's move on terminal. If this theory is not clear for you, you can make it out using some practical works. Okay, so let's move to the command line. So you can see on the screen my terminal is open. Let's create docker network, means our custom network. Okay, so for that there is a command sudo docker network create, and then there will be a flag for driver which says the type of network. So here it is bridge on which we are implementing. Then we have to give the custom subnet which we want to say. So we are giving 182.18.0.0/16. Okay, now we need to give the name which would be, as I told just now, custom isolated network. Let's hit the enter. Give me the root permission. Error response from daemon. Pool overlaps with the other one on this address space. Okay, so there is already one running on it. Let me create some other. Yeah, it is created. So this is just for a demo purpose. I have many networks which are running within my Docker. So let me go and see what is happening. Docker network ps command to show the list of Docker. Okay, it would be ls, not ps. Sorry for that. Yeah. So you can see I created just now this this one is mine for bridge network, which is custom isolated network. Okay, so this is how you can create a user defined network, and using docker network ls command you can try to see the list of networks which are being running or created. Okay, so but the thing is this network topic is not limited to this only. There are many more things which we can implement and many more things through which we can map, but that are not part of this fundamental course. That would be covered in the advanced Docker concepts. Okay, so I will be trying to implement that series as soon as possible. So let's move now to the last slide, which says thank you. And as this was the last lecture for this series, thank you all for patiently listening it and learning it. I hope you all have learned something or more about Docker so far with me. And if you like this series and this video, this content, please like my channel, subscribe my channel and hit the like button, because this journey is not going to end here. I would be coming up with new things on Tech on Cloud. And one more thing, if you have any suggestions, please reach out to me for with my handles, which are there listed in the description section. I also had a great time delivering this lecture to all the viewers on YouTube who are associated with computer science field. So bye bye till the next video. I hope you all enjoyed Docker Fundamentals series. Stay tuned, learn with me. That's all. Till then, take care. Bye bye.